Hello, and welcome to the Brave New Weed podcast. And now, here's your host, Joe Dolce.
Matt.
Joe.
I'm in San Francisco, and I have to tell you about the most amazing event I went to last night. You want to hear?
Yes, please. I want to hear all these things.
Firefly Vaporizer, which is a really good company, has invented this thing called a rosin puck. Do you know what rosin is?
I don't.
Rosin is, they used to do it in the 70s. You used to take buds, drippy buds, and put it between a curling iron, and the two hot plates would squeeze the oils out of the plant, and it keeps all the terpenes, and these thick oils would drop onto wax paper, and that's essentially rosin. So today they have better extraction methods. It's not quite so primitive, but it's the fullest extraction of the oil you can get. It's not like a dab or shatter where you're actually heating it super hot. This is actually a low temperature melt. Okay, so you get these beautiful flavors and aromas. But Firefly figured out this way of dripping these oils onto what they call a hemp puck, a tiny piece of looks like a little hemp coaster, basically, completely smokable with no tars or anything in it, and completely dry and easy to pick up. So you pick up a little puck, you put it into your Firefly vaporizer, and you inhale, and it is beautiful. And this is why I love San Francisco, and this is what the future of legal weed looks like. So I got invited to a tasting. They're just launching these pucks, this concept, to see if people are going to like it. So they brought about 30 or 40 people together into the offices of Meadow, this great startup I know. And we all just sat around trying the pucks, rating they had 3 different strains. They had a beautiful sativa called Durban Poison and a few other gorgeous, sort of one hybrid, one indica from local growers. And we all got to try these pucks. And they even loaned us Firefly vaporizers for a month so we could test them.
Oh, wow.
Give them their feedback.
So what is the big difference between this puck and vaporizing, ground whole flower?
Well, it's rosin, so there's no. It's very aromatic. It's very flavorful. I would say it's more concentrated flavor. I actually use the word delicious.
Yeah.
To describe it in the survey they asked, because it really was rich and flavorful, and I think it's just a very efficient way of, you don't have to grind weed. You don't have to if you're one of those people who doesn't like to grind or go through the motions of packing your bowl. I actually enjoy it, but a lot of people don't, I guess. This is a very easy, compact, neat, tiny. These little pucks, they look like nothing. They're tiny, tiny, tiny. So you can carry the whole kit and caboodle around in your pocket.
It's like a little pre-soaked charcoal briquette of resins.
But you can't imagine, it's smaller than your thumbnail. I mean, it fits into the little bowl of the Firefly vaporizer. So anyway, I just thought that was great.
It sounds really cool.
It was super great. What else is happening in the world of news and cannabis in the wide world out there?
Well, before we get into news, we should talk about something really exciting for us here in the podcast. We need to announce that we have our first of what we hope will be many giveaways associated with guests on our show.
I know. Isn't that cool?
I think it's super cool, and I hope that our Patreon patrons enjoy this as well, because it's our way of giving back. But the guest on this episode is Warren Bobrow. And we have a copy of his book. He's autographed it for us and given it to us. And we will be selecting one lucky Patreon patron at random on the 20th of July, which gives you guys about a little bit more than a week to get signed up on Patreon. Any eligible active patron will be put in the mix, and we're going to pick a winner at random, and we're going to send them out a free book.
So the book is called Cannabis, Cocktails, Mocktails, and Tonics. And it's actually a really great, a very clever and authentic book. I'm really happy that he gave that. I have a copy of it as well.
Yeah, I've been thumbing through the copy that we're going to give away just to get a look at it before it leaves my hands. And I'll tell you, the first part of the book contains a ton of information. The back half gets into a lot of recipes and stuff, but the first half has great stuff about how to decarb your own cannabis, how to handle extractions and how to work with different stuff, and how to sort of set yourself up with an education and a knowledge base, which I think is super, super important.
It's useful. It's how to make a cannabis cocktail taste good. Because normally you think of them as these grassy sort of things that don't taste so delicious. But he actually does a great job. So, yeah, I highly, encourage anybody who wants to contribute. Let this be the motivation to contribute to us and keep us going and have a drink.
Well, and like I said, that kicks off now. So if you're hearing our voice and you're hearing us talking about it, head on over patreon.com/bravenewweed. Any amount of patronage will get you eligible to win. And like I said, next week on the 20th, we are going to pick a winner at random, and we will announce it on episode 8 of the podcast, which should air July 27th.
Great, Matt. So what's up with the news? What's going on?
Let's talk about news. Weed is now legal in Las Vegas.
You like Las Vegas? I guess this is a great thing, right?
Well, I mean, maybe even if you don't care so much for Las Vegas, this is a good thing because it can make Las Vegas a little bit more tolerable, perhaps?
Maybe it can, as a matter of fact. Not my favorite place, but nonetheless. They made $500,000 their first day in taxes?
That's what I read. Who knows what? I haven't done the math or looked into any statistics as far as dollar sales amounts. But the earlier reports coming off was that day one, they raked in over $500,000 in tax money to go back to the state.
Well, that will help maybe some politicians find it a little easier. From my understanding, the gaming industry and the alcohol industry were not very pro this, and they fought this for a long time. So it's have to be very interesting to watch what happens in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, I think, alcohol and Las Vegas have been so well associated with each other for so long. You sit down at a table, the free drinks keep coming, you just keep sitting there, you just keep losing your money. So I guess it's not surprising. But at the same time, I figure one would assume that legal cannabis in Vegas is going to draw people out. We got to get cannabis tourism. Maybe people who wouldn't have gone to Las Vegas who aren't into gambling or anything like that might have now a reason to go. And I think Las Vegas has been struggling for many years now.
Beats me, but, we'll see what happens. What else is new out there?
Well, moving a bit further north, what about Washington State? Working in their government to draft a bunch of new regulations to protect their legal market from the one and only Jeff Sessions.
Jeff Beauregard Sessions, as we like to say on this podcast.
Third.
Well, what they're doing is, from my understanding, is they're basically making the regs tighter and saying, hey guys, no advertising to kids, no dispensary owners who are workers who are under 21. If you get a license, make sure you open your business in 2 years. Adhere to the law, so the feds can't come in and make a case out of you.
I mean, and it sounds like just good common sense operating laws. We don't want to be out there pushing to kids, basically what's in place for alcohol and tobacco as is. But this also kind of mirrors some of the activity that we saw in Colorado, which is the state standing up for themselves and saying that they're not going to let this return to, hardline war on drugs coming out of the Sessions administration to affect what they have done on the state level.
Well, at least what they're going to do is try to make their businesses comply before they get shut down, which I think that's about the minimum they can do, and it's probably a good idea to comply with the law. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, just follow the law.
Yeah.
as much as you can, in as much as the law makes sense.
I think they're pretty well regulated out in Washington. But meanwhile, to our neighbor in New Jersey, the fat ass Chris Christie lost any hopes of recreation in that state as long as he's in office, which thankfully is not very long. Did you see the picture?
Well, and here's what I want to ask, Joe, is if he's closing down the beaches and then being photographed using those same closed beaches for recreation after banning them from everyone else, is it safe to assume at this point that even though he's against recreational marijuana, that when he's not, when nobody's looking, that he's just getting high as can be?
He is. Let's hope he's not on our side. He is not the mascot we want.
It just seems like the same kind of hypocrisy that you would expect out of this, talking out of both sides of his face, saying one thing, doing another.
I would say talking out of both chins of his face.
Both. I think that's a little too generous. I mean, fourth or fifth chin, maybe.
Yeah, he's just not an inspirational character on any level. Enough about him, I say. Matt, we go through the news every week, and I really want to thank Weed Week for doing a great job of news gathering around the country, around the world. Do you know Weed Week? Do you watch it?
I don't. You've sent it to me a couple times when you've come across items. I'm fairly familiar with it. It's sort of a cheat sheet for marijuana news, right?
Yeah, it's Alex Halbert, and he does a great job of sort of synthesizing, compiling. He's a writer and a journalist also. And I really rely on it. It comes every Saturday. It's free of charge. And it just keeps everybody in the loop of what's going on. It talks about culture, it talks about politics, talks about business, gives you a broad overview of what's happening. So I think for people who are interested in the industry or the politics of what's going on, it's a good digest.
So how does one get signed up for Weed Week to get it in their inbox?
You go to weedweek.net and just sign up, and it magically appears in your inbox. It appears every Saturday morning.
Cool. They're just collecting this and shipping it out to you. It's like the Saturday morning paper.
Like the Saturday morning paper put together by Alex Halpern.
What do you think, Joe? Should we move on and bring on our guest?
Let's bring Warren on. I mean, let's let him start talking about his mixology. I just want to say, before I met Warren and you and I were talking about this, I was pretty skeptical about mixing these oils and alcohol. Were you?
I mean, I kind of agree. It's always sort of been the danger zone whenever alcohol and cannabis come into the picture together.
No, I've only tried a few of his cocktails. I've never really had them over the long period of the evening, so who knows what happens. Maybe gorgeous, maybe magic, I don't know. But I will say that his recipes were really surprising, both in terms of the ingredients he used, like really fresh, raw ginger, raw ingredients. Mm-hmm. And taste. The combination of flavors was really sort of novel to me. What do you think?
No, I think that he has done a brilliant thing in that all of the recipes are in service of the cocktail itself. It's not about getting wasted off your face. It's not about getting high as a kite. He's out to make delicious, tasty, individual cocktails, and all of the mixology is in service of that goal, not in the party it up goal. And I think that that's where he really succeeds.
Let's talk to Warren. Let's see what he has to say.
I'm known as the Cocktail Whisperer. I work very clearly with craft cocktails made with craft cocktail ingredients like craft spirits. I don't work with any of the big players. I'm all about flavor and quality, and I'm interested in balance. Balance is really important, and that's why I brought some flavors with me today, which kind of bring us into that direction. Do we have some ice? Are you able to get some ice?
Let me look.
Is there any ice in our?
I think there was a.
So I would love to make us a craft cocktail while we're.
I think there was like a micro fridge in the kitchen area.
Yeah, if there is, it's great, and if not, we'll just mix it up anyway and make it something fun.
We'll figure it out.
But we are making some full test cocktails tonight.
Full test.
Full test. Yes, it's something that I did down at the Miami Rum Fest a few weeks ago. I was a guest judge, and I had held my own seminar, which was on cannabis cocktails. And it was a secret seminar. We really didn't advertise it, although if you go to the Miami Rum Fest site, you can see it there.
Yeah.
But we didn't talk about it until afterwards.
Yeah.
Because, working with weed and working with or cannabis and working with alcohol is
difficult to show up,
it was
right?
frowned upon.
What's in the bag, sir? What's in the bag?
Yeah, what's in the bottle? I mean, it's in this bottle. In this case, it's not Vermouth Royale. It's Martinique rum.
Martinique rum.
So they have an AOC, which is an Appellation Originale Contrôlée.
Yeah.
They have to make rum in a specific fashion and style, and it's held to a law known as the AOC. Perfect.
Now we need to be somewhat neat because it's not our fault.
I'm very neat. There we are. So we're making ourselves a cannabis cocktail. So we're going to stir this up. So this is a cannabis cocktail that I made with Clement rum, the Bleu Cane, Bleucanne, and I'm just making it nice and chilled. There's some pineapple juice, roasted pineapple juice that I made the other night. which is really nice in here. And I think there's a little bit of mango as well. So it's kind of like a fruit punch.
That packs a punch. That
packs a little bit of a punch, I would say. I'd say about 25 milligrams of THC in each drink. Oh, and they're not quite finished yet. I have to add the bitters. So I'm going to take that one. Let me get the bitters in here. These are crude bitters from North Carolina. From Easygoing, North Carolina. It's the Rizzo. It's rosemary, grapefruit, and peppercorn bitters. I love them because they add depth and balance to a craft cocktail. So
couple drops of that going in there.
Okay, so I'm known as the cocktail whisperer, so it's all about whispering the cocktails. Well, it's kind of letting go flavors and spirits within a craft cocktail. Gives it depth and balance. Anyway, cheers.
Cheers.
Joe, ask me anything. Cheers. I have never named a cocktail after myself. I'm too humble.
I think he's asking if you concocted the name, the Cocktail Whisperer.
Oh, no, I didn't actually. I did not name myself the Cocktail Whisperer. That was done by a group out in Seattle named Foodista that I was writing for in my very infancy of being an author. Just discharged from the corporate world. Isn't that delicious?
It is really good.
I just ruined you for everyone else. I mean, that is a full test craft cocktail. There is nothing weak about it.
No, it's definitely...
But it's so well balanced.
It's definitely
so well amalgamated.
potent.
Oh, it's potent. It's 100 proof rum agricole. There's nothing unpotent about it. But it's very well balanced.
Well, and people are listening to us. They can't really see. It's not a large drink. We're looking at about two ounces.
Less than 2 ounces
of fluid.
Mm-hmm. This is a Sour Willy that we're
gay?
drinking right now. Excuse me?
Are you gay?
No.
Okay.
No, not
That's a very funny name.
Not this year.
A lot of people I know would really appreciate that name.
Not this year. So a sour Willy.
Sour Willy. It's actually a medical strain. I don't want to tell you where it's from because they'll be upset. But
okay.
But it is a medical strain. It's
medical strain.
It's meant for healing. And what I tried to achieve with this cocktail is to create something that had wonderful balance and wonderful depth, and didn't taste like what you would expect it to taste like. I mean, you can taste the herb in there, and it does add some layers of flavor. It's kind of like making soup, but nothing is out of balance. It's all very, very cool.
Yeah. Now this is not an extract. This is
definitely not an extract.
An infusion.
This is an infusion. Yeah, I took about 7 grams of cannabis, and I decarbed it in a Nova decarboxylator, which is made by the Ardent Company. I hope I have that right. Up in Massachusetts. They're just west of Boston. They're doing some incredible things. No longer do you have to decarboxylate in a toaster oven or a regular oven.
Tell people what carboxylate
decarboxylate
means.
Yeah, explain that.
Decarboxylating is releasing the THCA from THC. THC is the stuff that makes you feel stoned, that we all like. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Anyone who smokes a cigarette or has a drink should keep their mouth shut because they're saying, "Oh, drugs are bad." Yeah,
we don't need to go there.
Might make me feel bad.
We're a conversation for the post-prohibitionist era.
We're past that. So
we're just not even going there. Okay.
They've already accepted the fact that they enjoy it. So this is offering you a way of taking your medicine and not being antagonistic. And I think that's really important in the society that we live in today, where you could be smoking a joint in the street and the next minute ended up in Rikers Island, which is something I did. So, these things happen.
You're talking about being able to drink or eat.
I know. I was
and not smoke.
I was eating dinner with my first wife at Esca. I walked outside into the street to smoke a joint, and 48 hours later, I ended up in Rikers Island.
I understand, but what you're talking about is the ability to use cannabis without smoke.
Without smoke, absolutely.
Leave no trace.
Leave no trace, no antagonism, no smell. What the policeman said to me when he was arresting me was, "We smelled you 2 blocks away."
Always the dead giveaway.
It was the dead giveaway. This is a very high-powered drink that we're drinking.
Yeah.
You can really taste it. It's going to do its thing.
How are you able going from an infusion to accurately gauge the amount of
Jesus Christ, you're not going to start on that like everyone else.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's really
we'll save it until the drink.
As a matter of fact, that's a really important question.
It's a really important question. And there is a calculation that we make that belongs to Sherry Siccardi, who taught me how to infuse correct amounts of THC into a cocktail so you know exactly what the dosage is. And I use her method to the T. And I can tell you there's 25 milligrams of THC in every 2-ounce drink.
I can tell our listeners that he said that directly to my face incredibly confidently. I believe him.
That's a lot of THC.
It is.
Okay,
It is a lot of
let's just be
THC.
clear. So I'm comfortable at between 5 and 10.
Right. Most people are comfortable.
You have a
between 5 and 10.
You
I
have a
very high
tolerance. So you're taking 50?
50 is where I get started.
That's mega.
But yeah, I have an affliction with my eyes, so it releases it.
Glaucoma?
Exactly, and it reduces the interocular pressure, and a higher amount of CBD as
Yes.
opposed to
THC.
THC gives you a 3-hour window of reducing the pressure, which keeps me from losing my eyesight. There's no symptoms until you're blind.
Great.
So fortunately, I went to my ophthalmologist, which I go to anyway, and he said, Warren, it's time for us to talk about this laser surgery procedure. And the first thing I heard out of his mouth was when he said I had glaucoma. I knew that I was going to become a part of the cannabis program in New Jersey.
Okay, so let's talk about cannabis cocktails. Your book,
Right.
Mocktails
So-
and Tonics.
Yeah, so
Spirited Drinks and Buzzworthy Libations. That's a lot of titles up there.
It's a lot of titles up there, but I'm being known as the Cocktail Whisperer, and I
Who named you
understand- Sherry Weatherall from Foodista out in Seattle gave me that thing. I think did she at Foodista or was it served raw? It may have been served raw.
What
in
does
San
a cocktail
Francisco.
whisperer
One of those
do?
things. Anyway,
What is a cocktail whisperer?
A cocktail whisperer is someone who speaks to the spirits and with natural ingredients and handcrafted liquors. And not everything is liquor in here. There's also mocktails, which I feel very confident about, like my Vietnamese iced coffee with THC infused condensed milk on page 52. So I was ready for you on that one.
Does he know the page numbers or
Yeah,
what?
well, I just asked for. I'm doing.
Are you
that-
good at promotion
there
or
it is,
what,
right
man?
there. I was just doing that for an article, a magazine article. So I had to remember what page it was that had the beautiful recipe. But condensed milk does infuse beautifully because it is a receptor of the THC.
A lot of fat,
It's
right?
fat. Now you don't necessarily need fat, and I think that's a misconstrued thing that our public has been put upon them, because I infuse Vichy water, which is just sparkling water with a little sea salt put in the top, and it works just fine. So you don't need fat. I think what you really need is a little bit of lecithin, which is brain food. It's what makes up our brain, and if you're able to add a little bit to that craft cocktail, you get a much deeper buzz. I did not use that in this cocktail, but things that are like mezcal based, I can do it because it can get lost in the background.
And how did you get into cannabis?
I've been smoking cannabis since I was about 12 or 13. My cousin and uncle took me to a Grateful Dead show in Jersey City at the Roosevelt Stadium.
Yes.
And that was it. That's what blew my mind. I don't think I took acid until I was probably 16, but at least I smoked some weed.
Okay, but
It was great fun.
that's not getting into the business of making cocktails and knowing about
Making cocktails, so that's something else.
knowing the
Well, I'm
word
just
of
giving you my provenance,
decarboxylation.
I'm just saying
Okay.
I'm not new to the party.
That's
I'm
okay.
56 years old.
I know,
I'm
but
glad to
it's all
tell you
I
pedigree
can't tell you how many
testing.
people I've met. It's like, oh, what's your expertise? Oh, I've been smoking for 40 years.
Yeah, I've been
Sorry,
smoking for
dude,
longer
that's
than
not
you.
expertise. Sorry,
Okay.
that's not on the resume.
Hey, what is it?
Are you
It's,
all about a buzz, or are you more about medicinal use?
Oh, that's a really good question. I used to be all about the buzz, but now I'm all about the medicinal use. And I wrote the book all about the medicinal use, but then I went to the buzz because I realized that it was just so amazing. And
Whoa, hold on. You realize what was so amazing?
the feeling was so amazing. And the feeling was that you could have, I made papadobles, which are Hemingway daiquiris,
Okay.
and I infused the rum with THC, and I could have like 10 of them and still be able to walk. There was just something about it that allowed you to drink anything you saw and that was infused.
So you're sort of
And-
old school.
Well, I'm definitely old school.
Let's just say that, right?
Well, yeah, I'm definitely old school, but I worked at Danceteria, so it wasn't just about drinking a little bit and saying, "Oh, I'm stoned," or "Oh, I'm drunk." I don't like getting drunk, but I do like getting a buzz. So I found that making a cannabis cocktail was the perfect balance of buzz and drunk. I don't like getting drunk. I really don't like getting too overly high, but they just work beautifully together and they're well balanced.
I've never really thought that, but I'm willing to explore here. I generally think they're antagonistic to each other.
Yeah,
Not at all. They work very well. They play very nicely in the sandbox together. And I'm willing to go up to the board and say that once you experience this, it's just a wonderful feeling, and you have all the best of the world of the alcohol and all the best of the world of the cannabis and none of the negatives. And it seemed to work that way for me. And I tested every single recipe on myself, and I know how far to take it. And I found when you go just a little bit too far, lemon juice, peppercorns, you're just fine.
You can
That's a
sort yourself
traditional
back
antidote.
out.
Yeah, it opposite on the flavor scale.
Huh.
It's interesting. Lemon juice. We were talking about terpenes.
Yeah, yeah.
Lemon juice.
I
has
was
a lot
wondering
of,
about
well,
that.
lemon juice has a lot of limonene, which is an uplifting sensation. Black pepper has a lot of caryophyllene,
Right.
which is the back note. Well, it's the back of black pepper and clove.
Gotta get it.
And that's a different sensation. I think it's more sedative. Am I correct, caryophyllene?
Yeah, well, it is, but it all depends on. It's also very strain specific. You can go into indicas and sativas and gain all the terpenes from individual strains. So I might infuse one batch with sour diesel, or I might do another batch with some type of kush. I mean, there's all different ways you can infuse mezcal with indica, or I would do like a botanical gin, like Bar Hill gin made from raw honey and grain, with a sativa, because I want a higher note.
You're mixing your up with your down.
Right, up or down. But I also love making Sazeracs, and I make those Sazeracs with absinthe that is infused with THC. So it's bad boy meets bad boy. And Ted Bro was very good to me.
Do you
about
do
that.
this in public at all? I mean,
Absolutely not.
Okay.
It's so illegal. I don't even like doing it in people's houses because I'm worried that someone's going to have to take a surprise drug test. And unless I had a confidentiality agreement with them that said that they couldn't tell anyone that they had cannabis cocktails with me at any point in the future, I really don't recommend it.
Do you throw parties?
I don't.
Do you bartend at parties?
I do.
You do?
Yes. I do mixology. That's what I make my living.
Got it.
And if it means this, we'll
It
talk
means
about
this.
it offline. Do you like this cocktail?
So I guess
it's del-
Instagram
I think
pictures
it's
are out of the
delicious,
question.
but if I keep drinking it, I'm not going to be able to talk to you.
Well, then you're on round 2
Because I
already.
told you I don't like a lot of
Yes,
THC,
but I-
and I'm very nervous about drinking more because I'm also very dose aware.
Right, but do you like the flavor balance?
I think it's a beautiful
It's a
flavor
beautiful
balance.
cocktail. I use with the pineapple. I took the Demerara and I took balsamic vinegar, so you get this sour flavor. So it's not just sweet. I don't make
No,
sweet
I
cocktails.
like the mix.
And you really have to understand that my cocktails are not sweet drinks, and I never make sweet drinks. I was in Russia a couple of years ago, and I taught at the Moscow Bar Show a course on dark rum and why the public is fooled that when they think dark rum is old rum, and dark rum is only dark because they add caramel.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay.
Fools you. Could be
And
one day old.
when you're in California, or
Yeah.
do you do more bartending, bud tending? I
You
don't know.
know
What do you
no,
call your?
when
Are
I
you
was
whispering more in
when I was
California?
in California the last time I was there representing a rum company. So I was not doing anything with weed and not doing anything with cannabis at all. And I really would love to, and I'm hoping that some opportunities present themselves, but I have not. Where I did do it was Seattle during Hemp Fest, and I made tangerine mint juleps for the women in weed. I can't tell you who was there because I have a confidentiality agreement in writing with them, but I can tell you that they were the most powerful women in the weed industry in the world. And
So
I
this
made
is no
tangerine
fun.
mint
This is
juleps
no
with them.
fun if you keep telling us you can't tell us who was there because of your confidentiality
okay.
agreements.
I'm sorry?
Just either tell us or don't tell us.
I'm
But
not
don't tell
telling
us you can't
well, I
tell
can
us.
tell you it was
Okay?
the
I think
women
it's
who-
fine.
no,
It's a
no,
good
I almost said I
tease.
was the
It's a
women
good
in
It's just
weed.
too much of a tease.
Well, just look it up, women in weed, and then you'll know. I just can't
I
tell
already
you
know.
myself.
I think it's very fair.
Now tell us how you learned to do this. Will you give us a little of
I
your?
had a dream. There is no learn. I
Tell us.
dreamt it. I absolutely dreamt it.
You dreamt what? The book.
How to do the whole thing. How to do it.
You dreamt
the process.
decarboxylation. You had a dream. It's a decarboxylate
No, I knew
cannabis.
about I knew about decarbing. I knew about decarbing because I'd been making edibles since I was 16 years old, and that was one of the things that I learned. I was raised in a very unique situation.
Obviously.
And I had family out in the West Coast, and there was always interesting people to be met. And Hawaii played a little bit of it into it, and certainly Beverly Hills and Santa Monica, Venice.
So you were
So people
the
would play around
scion. You're the
with fun
scion
stuff.
of Columbia Pictures, correct?
No, it was only he was only a stockholder, but he was the largest.
Your grandfather.
Yes, he was the largest stockholder.
So you had a really unique
I had a
upbringing.
unique upbringing.
Okay.
And there was a lot to be said for that because it involved European travel and Brazilian travel and African travel when most people were still in diapers.
Got it.
So that was pretty cool.
No, seriously, tell us about your dream.
My dream was that I read an article that was done, and I want to kind of go back to it when you see this little thing. I dedicated my book to my late father who disowned me when he learned that I wrote a book about cannabis. And my takeaway for that was to my father.
Again, Warren, you can't just say that.
No, it's
and
true.
expect us not to say anything
I'm
or
not
ask
gonna
a
say so.
question
I'm just
about it.
saying, well, of
What do you mean he
course, but I'm
disowned
just
you?
saying, well, he left me out of his will. So he was
There you go.
a
That's
real
about as clean as it gets.
Republican person, and very conservative. But I dedicated the book to him, to my father, Robert Bobber, who taught me to stand on my own 2 feet and succeed at what made me happy. And I think the takeaway in that is that I had a dream, and I saw what people were doing out in the marketplace with cannabis. I read an article about a dinner that was taking place at Roberta's over in Bushwick, where they made each course with cannabis in it, and they also made cannabis cocktails.
I have a friend
in Bushwick.
Yeah, in Bushwick, right by Heritage Radio.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
great
was
place.
a little dodgy thing. I had a friend who went to this. I think it's exactly the
Right.
one that you're talking about. And his takeaway from it was that it was over the top.
It was completely over the top. So I read the article, and I was not impressed by the writing because I'd already, by that point, written 3 books, and I write my own books. I'm not ghostwritten. So I understand what it's like to write a complete manuscript from beginning to end without paying for someone to make it happen for you. And I felt that it was very important to pay attention to detail, as I do in all of my books, all my craft cocktail books, because I am, in effect, a bartender at heart. I started as a bar back at age 50. I went to see my friend Anthony Bucco, who didn't own it, but he was the executive chef of a restaurant called the Ryland Inn out in White House, New Jersey. I said to him that I really wanted to be a bartender. He said, well, you got to talk to my buddy Chris James, who's working at the bar. He might be able to use you. I don't know. And he said, I don't need any bartenders, but what I need is a bar back. So for a year, I bar backed. And that's a pretty rough job. I've dishwashed and pot scrubbed, but bar backing is by far the hardest thing I've ever done.
Was bar backing before or after the dream?
It was before the dream.
Okay.
So
So
this is all on the climb.
I was able to develop my chops and to know the techniques. Then I read the article about Roberta's. Then I had the dream that I was going to write a book, which was the first book on the topic, which still is the first book on the topic, named Cannabis Cocktails. And having written apothecary cocktails and whiskey cocktails, bitters and shrub syrup cocktails, I had a name in the field, and I'm known as the Cocktail Whisperer. And I wanted to try to unlock a technique, a method, a use that had never been done before, or if it had been done before, it was never done in writing. And with my book, I achieved that. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the endorsements, Susan Squibb, who's the cannabis maven, fabulous woman out in Denver, Colorado, my friend Greg Kleiman, drinkspirits.com, it adds true provenance to the book, and knowing that they gave it their seal of approval. They didn't have to do that. No one has to do anything. My books don't have to be endorsed by famous names to be popular. And I just think that everything tests beautifully for a reason, because they just taste good. They also get you buzzed.
I was looking through the book. There's a lot.
75 recipes.
There's 75 recipes, but it's not just recipes. It's not like an ingredients, like here's how you do it. There's a ton of other information in here.
Well, of course, in my publisher, Fair Winds Press, through Cordo Publishing up in Beverly, Massachusetts, they're very detail-oriented. And when you turn in a manuscript, you turn in a completed manuscript, not one that has to be deciphered by your editors. And I try to make it easy for them. So everything is camera ready, if you will. I work very closely with Glenn Scott, who's my photographer. He does gorgeous work. He shoots completely in the dark, which is amazing, and everything is done with a flash, and so it's pretty amazing. So we also do flavor profiles of all different strains, which is really important, and what liquors they match with.
Sure, because you're using whole plant
of course, yeah,
infusions.
I'm using whole flower infusions. The pictures that I have there are from fan leaves. That's all I was able to get for the shoot. There was an individual who tore me a new one on Amazon saying that fan leaves don't have any THC. Great. Well, if you were to give me something better, I would have used it.
It's not
I
really.
just
It's,
couldn't
by the way,
get any
and it's
better for the photo shoot.
It's also not true. Fan leaves do have THC.
Right.
That's where they
very,
make a lot of
very
oils
little,
out of.
very little. And of course, hemp has lots of THC, but there's no hemp in the book. Or it has no THC.
Hemp has no THC.
It has no THC, but there's no hemp in the book, but there's CBD in hemp. I didn't work with CBD at all. I just worked with THC.
It's hard to get CBD in the East Coast.
Well, first off, it's illegal. So even in the the school of thought of going to a dispensary, the strains do have a small amount of THC. They have THCA mostly, and a good portion of CBD.
Your favorite cocktail?
Of this book, or in all? In all, my favorite cocktail is the Papadoble daiquiri, which is the Hemingway daiquiri times 2. So normally it would be 3 ounces. I like them about 6 ounces. They sort of take the edge off. and I did actually infuse Hemingway daiquiris with cannabis, but they're too strong for the book, so we didn't include that.
Too strong for the book.
Yes.
25 milligrams, totally
strong.
fine.
Well, there were like 60 milligrams to start, and you have 2 of those, and you're already way over the limit.
Yeah, that seems like it. Well, let's talk about that, though. Let's talk about
people who are ill, people who have legitimate reasons for that. If they have, bodily injuries or pain or cancer or, things that are really debilitating, they want to be able to kill their pain. They don't want to take opioids. And we have a real problem in this country, and especially in New Jersey, where individuals are overly medicating themselves with opioids, and there's an incredible crisis, and people are dying all over the place. No one has ever died from cannabis. And I believe that it depends on what strain you use and how much you use of it, you're able to manage your pain. Mm-hmm. And I always say, when I toast someone, I always say, all the pain is gone.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
all the pain is gone. So tell me about the cannabis pantry. Like, what do you need for your cannabis pantry?
Well, let's see. Well, we need decarbed cannabis, and again, we go back to the Nova decarboxylator, and what that does is it removes the THCA from THC. THC is, of course, what gives us a nice feeling inside and takes away the pain. If it is pain that's in your head or pain that's in your body, I'm not here to tell you that, but you do need to decarb cannabis first to make it bioavailable. And what I mean by bioavailable is so you get that experience, you get that feeling of comfort, of relaxation.
So that it actually works. I mean, that's why...
Well, it really does. And I'm not a doctor or a scientist, even though I did write a book named Apothecary Cocktails, but I do believe in folk healing methods, and cannabis has been used in folk healing for 5,000 years. So why do I have to decipher what it does for you? I know what it does for me. I can't tell you what it does for you, and I certainly can't tell you how it's going to affect you. I know what it does for me, and that's what I tried to say in the book, that I tested everything on myself, and I'm still here. There was an article in Imbibe magazine recently, which I'd like to go over, which said that I was dangerous and bad, and I'm happy with both.
What was dangerous and bad about you?
Because I probably used way too much cannabis in each of the cocktails, but I believe that if you're having one, you're done. And then it's the right amount.
See, I would totally disagree. One of the things I hate about strong weed is that you don't have the pleasure of actually sitting back and smoking. If you're like, I actually prefer things that go on for a long time and are social.
Well, the buzz is social, Joe.
No, that I know.
The buzz, and this
but the experience of drinking one cocktail is sort of like
I
having...
understand the cocktail experience. Yes, of course. And that's why in the book I include mocktails as opposed to just pure cocktails. Because cocktails, of course, you don't want to drink too many of, even though you don't feel like you're having any alcohol, you really are. So responsible drinking is number one. Number two, you can make delicious drinks from my book that are made with shrubs, say, apple cider vinegar, fruit, a little bit of sugar. So you create a chemical process, which is called a shrub.
What's a shrub?
A shrub it's not a shrubbery that lives out in the backyard, but it's an acidulated beverage which aids in digestion. And it happens to be one of those beverages that works very well with cannabis infusions. So you get that sweet tart flavor. And again, I don't make sweet cocktails, so it's more of a tart, sour flavor, kind of like a sweet tart
Like
candy.
a Fernet? Is that one?
Fernet is pure bitter. Fernet is pure bitter. This is sour and sweet and bitter all at the same time. If you imagine orange marmalade with a little more balsamic vinegar added to it, you're about halfway there. And as I find with those sour flavors, they're very thirst quenching. They're also very digestive in nature. So if you have them after a big meal, you find that you digest your food better. Like having something like Campari. Campari, for instance, is great as a digestif. Fernet is great as a digestif. Amaros are great as digestifs. You probably wouldn't have a Fino Sherry as a digestif because it's just too crisp and aromatic, but you might have a Pedro Jimenez. And all these different types of liquors work very well in infusions, and how I'm doing it now will blow you away. I'm using the ISI whipped cream thing. And
No idea what
I don't know what this
It's
is.
a thing that you make whipped cream in. It's called an ISI. It's a whipped cream canister, and you would normally put
Like a
cream
CO2 cartridge
you
in
put
it and the-
nitrous oxide.
Okay.
Right. So what this does with the decarb cannabis is it micro encapsulates THC into each molecule
There
of
you
the
go,
alcohol.
Joe.
And that is my process.
So that means it's a quick uptake.
It's a quick burn out. It is everything that you wanted because it doesn't involve heat.
Tell me about that. How do you micro encapsulate? Is it a pressure thing?
It's pressure, and nitrous oxide does it. And the technique was invented by a guy named Dave Arnold, who's at the International Culinary Center, which is prior French Culinary Institute, and he created this for infusing liquor with different herbs. I took his method and took that different herbs, as taking it as cannabis, and infusing it into any kind of craft spirits that there were on the market. And so I even did it with Lambic beer, with Belgian beer.
So you take the herb,
Yes.
put it in this
In
whipped cream,
it's like a
container,
canister, a stainless steel canister.
and then what happens?
Well, the herb's been decarbed, so it's 100% bioavailable. It is absolutely, you could eat the bud and still get a buzz on it. That's how it's 100% bioavailability. You put it into a hemp bag, like a tea bag, and you put that inside the ISI, and then top it up to 3/4 length with whatever liquor that you want to infuse. Hit 2 canisters, waiting about a minute or 2 each, and giving it agitation.
So
you
you're
can hear it fizzing in there.
pressurizing the container.
You're pressurizing the container, and you're micro encapsulating the THC into each individual molecule of alcohol, or whatever you're doing.
Do you really
want to
understand
infuse.
what micro encapsulating means?
Yeah, because I listened to Dave Arnold, and he made it easy for
But
me.
what does it mean? Tell me.
Well, what does it mean? It means that your infusion takes place without heat. It takes place with pressure.
Yeah.
And that is a game changer, because I don't need to worry about blowing up my house by having the gaseous vapors of alcohol catching onto my gas stove and being that guy. I want to be able to do it right here at the table with a minimum of use and minimum of ingredients, and just do it and make it fresh every single time. And with whatever strain specific. I mean, we're lucky to have medical cannabis. Not everyone does. But the reason why you should be using medical cannabis is there's no,
Pollutants, fertilizers, pesticides.
herbicides, whatever. It's organic. We want it to be organic because you don't want to concentrate those
Poisons.
negative.
Well, and it's
poisons,
not
yeah.
a mystery, right? You
Well,
know,
we know it's been tested, and we
Yeah.
know that it's good quality.
and you can gauge strength, and
We absolutely
Yeah.
can gauge strength, because if you're using a high CBD strain, you're not going to feel any buzz. But I can tell you, with what we made these cocktails with, there's no CBDs in this.
So are you like the most popular person in your set?
I don't really have a set, if you
Okay.
will. Yeah, I'm really careful about this. I don't want to spread it too wildly.
What do you mean? You wrote a book.
I wrote a book. Yeah, that's true. But as far as going and doing this at parties and things, I'm really careful about that, because I know it's illegal, and I know that I'm making the information available for others. But as far as taking money and doing a party for someone, I'm a little concerned
Sure.
about that.
I mean,
because I
it's-
can't guarantee that everyone at the party isn't going to get pulled over, or everyone at the party isn't going
Right.
to have a surprise drug test at work, and they're going to say, "Oh, I was having cannabis cocktails the other night, and it was with this guy. He wrote this book, and he made the cocktails." And you
Yeah.
know, no, I don't want that.
that makes sense.
So even out in the
I don't
West
think that
Coast,
makes
it's,
any sense.
It doesn't
Well,
make sense
That
to you,
makes
Joe?
no sense to me at all.
I
Why?
know it
Why
doesn't.
not?
Because I mean, you write a book, you're putting it out there. That's the end of the
No, I'm
story. You're not
putting it out
writing a
there.
book to be
Right,
quiet.
but what he's saying is he's abstaining from the activity
I'm
of
putting it out
actually
there
breaking
not
the law.
to be so provocative, because I'm already provocative. And having only written books about liquor makes you very provocative, because you're doing something that's with products that are truly poisonous. I mean, there is nothing good about alcohol. No one can say there's anything good about it at all, other than the fact that the wine that I drink should complement the foods that I'm eating. But at the end of the day, alcohol is not such a great thing to be drinking if you're on a health food regimen. But if you want to make some great mocktails, like my, iced coffee, or the Vietnamese sugarcane juice that's, with fresh crushed sugarcane and coconut milk that's been infused with cannabis, I love that, and I'm all for it. But as far as a bartender sitting and saying, putting a glass in front of you and saying, "Here's your cannabis cocktail," probably is not going to happen as long as cannabis is number one on the controlled substance list.
I don't think it's ever going to happen. I don't think there's going to be a bar that allows you to mix cannabis and alcohol. Do you?
I disagree.
Do you think there will be?
I disagree. I think they're already working with it with beer out in Oregon and in Washington State.
Infused
beer.
beers?
I have a recipe here on my phone for a full mash infusion that brewers can use right now. It only takes an ounce of weed, so home brewers can do it.
Sign me up for that recipe.
Or they can do it on a larger scale by just increasing the amounts. So if they're doing a full mash infusion, you can make perfect weed beer, 25 milligrams of THC in each bottle. I have the recipe.
Okay.
It's on the web. I mean, you can
Dig
find
it.
anything. But
and I've heard a lot about wine too. People are starting to experiment
Melissa
with.
Etheridge is doing a beautiful product with Fog City Collectives, and they make a can of wine. It sits in the weed. I don't think it's decarbed, which is strange, and I haven't been able to get a full answer from them on that yet. But they do infuse the wine, and it is Napa Valley Cabernet, I believe, and with local Humboldt County cannabis for 1 year in wood and oak. So the THC will leach out. Now,
The taste?
the taste probably tastes pretty green. I have not had it.
Purple and green.
Yeah, they say
doesn't
it's like
sound
green
good
wine.
together.
Well,
Oof.
you drink orange wine, so it's not that far away from that.
Oof.
It's kind of like a dessert wine. They say it's
It's a sweet. It's a sweet
It's
wine.
not a sweet wine. It's Cabernet, so it's probably fruit forward. Being a California Cabernet is probably very fruit forward.
I would
It's not
think
going to be
so.
as restrained
Yeah,
as
right.
a left bank, Cabernet.
Right.
But that's California wine for you. I mean, that's what people drink California wine because they like that fruit forward, hit in the face with 17% alcohol mini ports. I mean, that's why they drink them. So, you might as well do something you love.
Do you love doing this?
I am. It hasn't always been easy.
Why?
Well, as I said, problems with my own family who were very conservative and who set me free when they learned that I wrote a book about cannabis, and that's fine. I'm acceptant of that now. Made me angry then. But, I didn't want to antagonize people. I think that's very important in my process. And I wanted to make something that had good ramifications rather than bad. And now having a medical reason why I do use cannabis, it makes it all the more profound because I know that a cocktail like this makes me feel perfectly, where I want to be, and no one around me has to know that I'm smoking. And that's very important, especially out in New Jersey where I live, where, drugs are bad. And they really are, and they always have been. And it's going to be very difficult to see any sort of seismic change because it probably will not happen in Morris County where I grew up.
I think you could say drugs are bad, but plants are good.
I wish I could say that, but anyone who's spent any time in the care and concern of the New York City Police Department would know that drugs are bad.
I think that's a big air quotes. Drugs are bad.
Drugs are bad. All drugs are bad. So I make cannabis cocktails. They're bad too, but they're actually really good.
But it's a good way to fly under the radar. You're not intruding on anybody else's space.
I'm not like coming out with the new vaporizer that doesn't make your weed smell like weed, or I'm not coming out with the new bong that that filters your cannabis better than any other. This is something that you can use today. If you have the Nova decarboxylator, you can decarb your weed in an hour and 15 minutes, and it's perfectly bioavailable to mix into any sort of craft cocktail as quickly as that. I mean,
if you're
2
careful,
or 3 hours, it's done.
If you're careful, you throw it in the oven, and probably not as efficient and effective.
The oven is not effective at all, and it's taking a great. First off, it's taking a great amount of the THC away because it just evaporates unless
Right.
you're using a sealed
It's not
container.
it's not
Be
efficient
very
at all.
careful with your
It's not
temperatures.
efficient.
And
Yeah, it's not efficient, and it,
God forbid,
you know,
don't put it in the microwave.
I did do that. I have actually done that, and it does work really nicely. I talk about it. I think I talk about it in the book, but
Yeah?
maybe not. I don't know. But I have experimented with microwave decarbing, and it does work. It works all too well. Microwaves do vary in temperature and in power. So what happened to me when I was doing the Tales Live 365 for Tales of the Cocktail, I was doing my work up in New Hampshire at a friend of mine's bar, basement bar, and we were live to the entire world. And I microwaved the weed, and it burnt.
Yeah. Of course.
It burnt just like that, and I had to make it up as I was going along, and it looked like I was not having a good time, and I definitely was not having a good time. but you know, truth is stranger than fiction sometimes.
Oven method. And this information is in the book.
It's in the book, yeah, and I talk about the decarving in a sous vide method. It doesn't illustrate as well in the photography, but it does work pretty well as long as you do it for a long period of time.
So it's interesting because I think a lot of people in your situation who have the passion, who have the interest, who have the knowledge and the know-how would try and gun for a product.
Right.
But instead you're providing the information.
Yeah, as I was talking to a guy at the Spotted Pig tonight about that, and we were talking about the bagel recipe. You know, anyone can buy a bagel store in New York. The bagel recipe is extra. You can buy a bagel store for about $500,000, but the recipe is going to cost you $1 million. Mm-hmm. That's the same thing. In my book, I give you the bagel recipe, and it doesn't cost you any more. And if you buy the book, it actually comes with me. So if you get into a rut and you fall into something where it doesn't work for you, and I've given you my business card as I do because I do a lot of book signings, and you know how to get in touch with me. You could send me a text or pick up the phone and call me. If I can't get with you right away, I will call you back, or send me an email or whatever, and I'll walk you through the process. So it comes with the bagel recipe and the method of how to do it, which is really important. I don't know of very many cocktail books which come with that type of lifetime guarantee.
No, that's nice.
Because I really believe in it, and I want it to work for you, and I don't want you to have a problem with it because I know how expensive this stuff is, and unless you know a bartender or a teenager or you're a medical patient, you're shit out of luck, or because you're out of luck. So.
Oh, you don't have to censor yourself.
Okay.
This is the internet. We
Okay,
can say
right. We can say anything we
say
like.
whatever we want.
Okay, I have to remember. So.
What else would you like to know?
I mean, I'm in a pretty good place. I want to know, how do I get the book?
It is available on through any independent bookstore in the United States and just about the world. It's also available Barnes & Noble, of course, and Amazon, who have been very, very good to me. They say, Amazon, very, very good to me. They buy more of my books than anything, and I'm able to keep an eye on the metric and seeing how it's doing in sales, which makes me crazy sometimes. But I do appreciate if someone does buy the book on Amazon, that they can leave me an objective review on Amazon. It does drive sales, negative or positive. It's a nice way of saying thank you, and it's a nice way of saying I liked it or I didn't like it, and here's why.
Thank you, Warren. Cannabis cocktails, mocktails, and tonics.
Cheers.
Warren Bobrow.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Indeed.
So thanks again, Warren. That was great. And I want to move now from the entertaining into the other side of cannabis, which is the health side of cannabis. You got something in the mail today, didn't you, Matthew?
I did. It came yesterday, but today was my first opportunity to put it into use. And what I got was the Everyday Plus Charlotte's Web extraction that we got from Jesse Stanley.
So Jesse Stanley is one of the Stanley brothers, and these guys are hemp growers in Colorado, and they got really famous and started making a lot of money. They grew this strain that they called Charlotte's Web, which was what Sanjay Gupta made very popular when he showed it really reducing the number of epileptic seizures this young girl had. I think she was having 300 a day, and it reduced them to something like 3 a week.
Yeah, that portion of that documentary was mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing. So this is a hemp-derived CBD. Now, this is legal to ship around the United States. It's not psychoactive, it's very healing, and we can all have access to it. And we interviewed Jesse, which you're going to hear on the next episode of the Brave New Weed podcast. And he sent us some stuff. So did you try it?
I did. So it's a liquid tincture of the Everyday Plus, which I think is their highest CBD dosage.
It's good. It's about, I think if you take one dose, you get something like 40 milligrams or 25.
Yeah.
But it's
according to the package itself, it said that you should do 2 droppers, and then it was 35 milligrams of CBD. I was all morning absolutely feeling the effects of this extraction.
What were the effects?
You know, it's difficult to put specifically in words. It's 100%. How did I explain? I explained it to my wife. I said I felt like I was wearing like a sweatshirt and sweatpants, in the sense that it was very soft, warm, sort of all over body hug. My head was really clear. I didn't have any sort of effects like that, but I definitely could feel a bit of weight all throughout my body, and just a general relaxation. I didn't have any pain. I didn't have any stiffness or soreness. Just sort of a soft, wrapped up blanket kind of feeling.
It is. That's a great description, Matthew, of CBD. It's not psychoactive, but it is comforting. It's slightly sedative for a lot of. I mean, everybody reacts differently to these cannabinoids, but it's supposedly slightly sedative. Some people find it a little almost numbing because it does take away pain to a certain extent.
Sure.
So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I would definitely suggest anybody who is dabbling in the Charlotte's Web product,
CBD, you mean? Just looking for pure CBD, yeah?
Sure, any sort of CBD product, get your dosing right, because I definitely was not expecting it to be as active as what it was for me. Like, I sort of expected almost no noticeable physiological effect, just sort of a passive background kind of impact, but it definitely came on. It definitely had a solid feel to it.
What will happen over time is your receptors will get accustomed to it, and you probably will build a tolerance. So it's really useful to monitor your dose and keep it as low as possible.
Yeah, it sounds good. I mean, I definitely went with the full recommended dose. Probably tomorrow I will go with a half a dose, and then just like you said, monitor the reaction, monitor how I feel, and slowly, mitigate and moderate myself until I find the correct dosage.
So we're going to talk about that and so many more things in the next episode of this podcast. Be sure to tune in. Please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support means everything to us, and it allows us to keep going.
Absolutely right. And don't forget, all of our supporters on Patreon will automatically be entered to win in the drawing for the giveaway of Warren's book, Cannabis, Cocktails, Mocktails, and Tonics. Get over there today. We're going to draw a winner at random on the 20th. Thank you so much again, Joe. Take care. Enjoy San Francisco.
Take care, Matthew.
Thanks for listening to the Brave New Weed podcast. This episode and all future episodes are made possible by amazing listeners like yourself. If you like what you've heard, we encourage you to show your support by giving $1 a month for special access and rewards on patreon.com/bravenewweed. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram via @bravenewweed. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/bravenewweed. And remember, you can always find more information about us or information discussed in each episode by pointing your favorite browser to bravenewweed.com.
You can find me on the web, Facebook, W. Bobrow, Twitter, Warren Bobrow with a number 1 because someone stole my Warren Bobrow. It's a long story. Instagram, it's just my name, Warren Bobrow. You can always find me at cocktailwhisperer.com.